the most controlled person in the world is never the loudest one. It's not the one who dominates conversations, not the one who performs confidence, not the one smiling the hardest. It's the one everyone instinctively avoids pushing too far. And at some point, without even realizing it, you forgot that. You were trained out of your edge, taught to be agreeable, conditioned to soften your instincts until you became predictable, manageable, safe. You learned that being pleasant was maturity, that restraint meant virtue, that strength was something to apologize for. You were told kindness was power, that turning the other cheek was noble, that the meek would somehow, impossibly inherit the earth. But look carefully, not at what people say, at what actually happens. The world is not inherited by the meek, it's claimed by those who carry a quiet warning in their presence, a signal that doesn't announce itself, doesn't threaten, doesn't explain, just this: don't test me. That quality is not violence, it's not aggression, it's not cruelty, it's danger. And in a world obsessed with comfort, conflict avoidance, and curated vulnerability, you have been systematically disarmed. This video is not about becoming cruel, it is about something far more subtle, far more powerful. By the end, you will understand how to reclaim the dangerous core that has been slowly stripped from you since childhood, why the modern world profits from your softness, and how to rebuild an edge that protects you without ever being drawn. But understand this, not everyone is ready to hear what follows. If you still believe that niceness alone will shield you from exploitation, if you think good intentions are enough, then perhaps this message isn't for you. But if something in you already knows, if there's a voice buried deep that whispers, "I've been too accommodating for too long," then stay, because what we're about to uncover will never appear on a motivational poster. Let's begin. There was a time when danger was currency. Renaissance Florence, where Niccolò Machiavelli walked, was not a place for the timid. City-states warred for dominance. Alliances shifted like sand. Betrayal was not a question of if, but when. Every man understood a fundamental truth: survival required teeth. Machiavelli watched men rise and fall, not based on virtue, but on their willingness to be feared when the moment demanded it. He observed what centuries of sanitized philosophy tried to hide, that power flows toward those who are perceived as capable of wielding it. He wrote in The Prince, "It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both." That line is famous, quoted endlessly, but usually misunderstood. People read it as an endorsement of tyranny, as permission for cruelty. But look closer. Machiavelli never said to be cruel, he said to be capable of it, to carry within yourself the potential for decisive, overwhelming force, and to let that potential be sensed by others. The difference is everything. The cruel man is reactive. He punishes because he cannot control himself. He lashes out because he lacks internal strength. His violence is weakness wearing a mask. What about the dangerous man? He is restrained, composed, still, and precisely because of that stillness, everyone senses the depth beneath. There's an old Italian concept called terribilità. It was used to describe Michelangelo, but not his art, his presence, his ability to walk into a room and silence it, not through threats, through weight, through an aura of such concentrated power that even popes hesitated before crossing him. That is the quality we've lost. That is the quality this soft world has stolen from us, and it didn't happen by accident. The systematized weakening of the human spirit is perhaps the most successful psychological operation in history. It began with good intentions, as all manipulation does. Schools taught you to share, to cooperate, to suppress the competitive instinct that once kept your ancestors alive. You learned to wait your turn, to defer to authority, to never, under any circumstances, make a scene. Conflict resolution became the highest virtue, not conflict mastery, which requires strength, but conflict avoidance, which requires only cowardice rebranded as maturity. And slowly, without even realizing it, you absorbed a message repeated 1,000 different ways. Dangerous is bad, safe is good, power is suspicious, compliance is virtue. By the time you reached adulthood, the conditioning was complete. You had internalized a worldview where standing your ground was aggressive, where setting firm boundaries was toxic, where carrying yourself with unapologetic authority was intimidating. And intimidating, you were taught, is the worst thing a person could be. But ask yourself this: who benefits when you are easily intimidated? Who profits when your first instinct is to appease rather than assert? Not you. The answer is everyone who seeks to control you. Employers who want obedience without resistance. Partners who want access without accountability. Systems that function best when no one pushes back. Machiavelli wrote, "Men are so simple and so subject to present necessities that he who seeks to deceive will always find someone who will allow himself to be deceived. The softening is not an accident, it is a strategy." A population of harmless individuals is a population that is easily governed, easily sold to, easily manipulated. Dangerous people are inconvenient. They ask questions. They resist exploitation. They cannot be bullied into consensus. And so the world decided, we will make danger itself taboo, not violence. Violence is messy, prosecutable, often counterproductive. But danger, the quiet, internal capacity to devastate if necessary, that had to go. And for most people it did. Look at the language of modern self-improvement. It's all about softening. Be vulnerable, be open, let go of your armor, show your wounds. And there is truth in that. Vulnerability has its place. Connection requires openness. But vulnerability without power is just an invitation for exploitation. The message is never complete. It's always be soft, never be soft when it serves you and dangerous when it doesn't. The most predatory individuals on earth didn't read a single book about healing their inner child. They studied the people who did, and they learned to recognize prey by the vocabulary of surrender. You were disarmed with kindness. Now let's talk about rearming. Here is the paradox most will never understand. The truly dangerous are often the most peaceful. They don't start fights. They don't seek confrontation. They move through the world with a kind of quiet that unsettles people precisely because it cannot be decoded. Violence is loud. Danger is silent. Violence is reactive. Danger is patient. Violence needs to prove itself. Danger has nothing to prove. When I talk about becoming dangerous, I'm not talking about fists or fury. I am speaking of reclaiming something that lives inside every human being, but has been suppressed through shame, conditioning, and cultural programming. It is your capacity for intensity, your willingness to say no and mean it, your ability to walk away without explaining yourself, your refusal to be manipulated by guilt, obligation, or the social pressure of niceness. Machiavelli observed that men of power maintain control not through constant action but through the perception of what they could do if provoked. He advised, never attempt to win by force what can be won by deception. But crucially, force must remain an option, not used recklessly, but present, visible, felt. This is the weight of a person. Have you ever met someone who didn't raise their voice, didn't threaten, didn't posture, and yet you instinctively knew not to cross them? That is weight. It cannot be faked. It comes from deep internal alignment, a knowing, I am capable, I am willing, and I am choosing right now not to. The choosing is critical. A man who cannot fight is not peaceful. He is merely unable. His peace is not a choice. It is a limitation. But a man who can devastate, who carries that capacity calmly within him, and who chooses stillness, that man has earned his peace, and everyone around him senses the difference. Human beings are exquisitely attuned to danger. 10,000 years of evolution have wired your nervous system to detect threats within milliseconds, long before your conscious mind catches up. We read micro-expressions. We sense tension in posture. We feel the difference between someone who is performing calm and someone who is calm. And this is why authenticity matters. You cannot fake danger. You can only cultivate it. The man who puffs his chest, who speaks loudly, who overcompensates with aggression, he is easy to read. His performance betrays insecurity. Every excess signals weakness. But the man who is still, he becomes a question mark. And question marks are terrifying to those who need to categorize you, predict you, control you. Machiavelli wrote, men judge generally more by the eye than by the hand, for everyone can see you, but few come in touch with you. What he meant was simple. Image creates reality. If people perceive you as dangerous, you are functionally dangerous whether or not you ever act on it. The perception alone changes how they treat you. It changes what they are willing to attempt. This is why presence matters, not the theatrical, self-conscious presence of someone who's read too many body language books. Real presence, the kind that emerges when a person knows who they are, what they're capable of, and what they will not tolerate. You cannot manufacture this overnight, but you can begin. It starts with a question. What am I afraid to do that I know I should? Maybe it's speaking up when someone disrespects you. Maybe it's walking away from a situation that drains you. Maybe it's saying no to someone who has relied on your compliance. That moment, the one your body tenses around, is precisely where your danger lives. And every time you avoid it, you bury yourself a little deeper. Conversely, every time you move toward it, not with aggression, but with cold, deliberate clarity, you reclaim a piece of the weight you lost. Let's get practical. How do you actually cultivate danger? Not theatrical posturing, not aggression cosplay. Real, felt, unmistakable capacity. First, the body. Your physicality communicates before you speak. Posture, movement, the way you occupy space. A person who walks slowly, who holds stillness without fidgeting, who maintains eye contact without desperation. That person communicates something primal. You don't need to be large, you don't need to be physically imposing, but you need to inhabit your body, to move as if every gesture is deliberate, to stand as if the ground belongs to you. Most people move apologetically. They rush, they shrink, they make themselves small in elevators and meeting rooms. They defer spatially to whoever seems more dominant. Stop, not aggressively, calmly. Simply stop giving ground you haven't chosen to give. Take up space, move at your own pace. Let silence exist without rushing to fill it. These micro-adjustments accumulate. They rewire how others perceive you, and more importantly, how you perceive yourself. Second, the voice. A dangerous voice is not loud. It is controlled. Slow your speech. Lower your register. Not artificially, but by speaking from the chest rather than the throat. Eliminate filler words. Like, you know. These are verbal apologies. They signal uncertainty. They invite interruption. Speak as if every word costs something, because it does. The moment you become careless with language, you become careless with power. Pause before responding, not anxiously, deliberately. Let the other person sit in the silence of your consideration. That pause communicates something words cannot. I am not reactive. I cannot be rushed. I will respond when I am ready. Third, the eyes. This is where most people fail. The soft person averts their gaze, looks down when challenged, glances away during confrontation. The dangerous person holds, not aggressively staring, not unblinking intensity, just steadiness. When someone speaks to you, look at them. When someone challenges you, don't look away first. When someone tries to intimidate, meet it with calm, patient stillness. The eyes reveal everything. And when your eyes communicate, I am not afraid of this moment, the moment changes. Fourth, the boundary. Dangerous people have boundaries that are known without being announced. They don't explain their limits, they demonstrate them. When something crosses the line, they don't argue about it, they don't justify, they don't negotiate. They act quietly, finally. Maybe it's removing themselves from the situation. Maybe it's ending a relationship. Maybe it's a single sentence, delivered with such cold clarity that no further discussion is needed. That won't happen again. Not shouted, stated. The way you might state that the sky is blue, and the person hearing it knows, without understanding exactly how, that it is true. This is the architecture of an edge. Not one dramatic moment, 1,000 small ones. A constant recalibration of how you move, how you speak, how you look, how you enforce. Over time, it becomes who you are, and who you are becomes unignorable. Now we arrive at the deepest truth. Being dangerous is not enough. Danger without wisdom is chaos. Power without principle is tyranny. Strength without restraint is destruction. Machiavelli understood this despite his reputation. He did not admire brutality for its own sake. He admired effectiveness. And effectiveness, he knew, required balance. The prince who was only feared would eventually be overthrown. The ruler who inspired only terror would find no loyal allies when fortune turned. Hence, it is necessary for a prince wishing to hold his own to know how to do wrong, and to make use of it or not according to necessity. According to necessity. Not always, not carelessly, not as a first resort, but available, present, ready. The truly dangerous person is not someone who has abandoned ethics. They are someone who has internalized ethics so deeply that they no longer need external enforcement. They don't avoid cruelty because they fear consequences. They avoid it because it is wasteful, inefficient, beneath them. But if cruelty became necessary, truly necessary, they would be capable, without hesitation, without panic, without the paralysis that afflicts those who have never made peace with their own darkness. This is what Carl Jung meant by integrating the shadow. Jung, a psychologist who understood the shadow better than perhaps anyone, wrote, "The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely." Why terrifying? Because complete self-acceptance means accepting your danger. It means acknowledging the part of you that could destroy, manipulate, dominate. Not because you will, but because you could. This is what Jung called integrating the shadow. The shadow is not evil. It is simply the parts of you that were deemed unacceptable and banished to the unconscious. And your capacity for danger, that was one of the first things to go. Reclaiming it doesn't mean becoming violent, it means becoming whole. A whole person contains light and darkness, gentleness and severity, compassion and the capacity for devastating force. When both exist in balance, You become something rare, a person who chooses kindness, not out of weakness, but out of strength. That choice, conscious, deliberate, rooted in capacity, is what gives kindness its meaning. A lamb is not kind for refusing to attack. It simply cannot. A lion who chooses peace, that is something else entirely. That is dangerous. You don't become evil. You absorb the capacity for evil and place it under conscious control. The integrated person can be gentle because they have confronted their violence. They can be patient because they have felt their rage. They can be forgiving because they know exactly what they're capable of if they chose not to forgive. A kindness born from this integration is qualitatively different from the kindness of the merely harmless. It carries weight, because the recipient senses that it is a choice, that an alternative exists, and that the person before them has selected compassion from a menu that includes devastation. That is the kindness of the dangerous, and it is the only kindness that is truly respected. Let me tell you what happens when you stay harmless. Nothing dramatic. That's the cruelty of it. There's no sudden catastrophe, no single moment you can point to and say, that's when everything fell apart. Instead, there's a slow erosion, a gradual accumulation of moments where you should have spoken but didn't, where you should have walked away but stayed, where you should have demanded respect but accepted less. Each compromise feels small, survivable, reasonable even. It's not worth the conflict. I'll let it go this time. Maybe I'm overreacting. And year after year, compromise by compromise, you become someone you no longer recognize. You look in the mirror and see a face that has learned to smile on command, eyes that have forgotten how to hold a gaze, a posture that has curved inward, as if apologizing for taking up space. This is the cost of softness, not a dramatic collapse, a quiet disappearance. The person you could have been, the one who stood firm, who commanded rooms, who walked through life with weight and presence, that person dies in inches. And the worst part? No one notices, because the world doesn't mourn what was never born. The people around you adjust to your diminished version. They don't remember who you were before you started shrinking. They accept the smaller you as the real you. And eventually, so do you. Machiavelli wrote, "There is no avoiding war. It can only be postponed to the advantage of others." He was speaking of nations, but the principle applies to the self. Every conflict you avoid doesn't disappear, it compounds. Every boundary you fail to enforce becomes a precedent. Every time you tolerate disrespect, you train the world to expect your tolerance. You think you're keeping peace, you're actually surrendering territory. And one day you wake up with nothing left to surrender, living a life that was shaped entirely by other people's demands, wondering how you got here. That is the cost. Here is what they never tell you about predators. In nature, predators are not cruel. They are not sadistic. They do not hunt for pleasure. They are simply awake. Their senses are alive. Their focus is complete. Every movement is intentional. Every decision is weighed against survival. Prey animals live in a different state. Constant low-level fear, herd dependence, reactive rather than strategic, always scanning for threats, but never becoming one. Modern society has made prey of almost everyone, and it did not do it with violence. It did it with comfort. We live in chronic anxiety. We move in herds, ideological, cultural, professional. We react to every notification, every headline, every outrage cycle. We are always scanning for threats. But we have lost the predator mind, the mind that creates reality rather than reacting to it, the mind that moves with intention, not impulse, the mind that others instinctively do not want to challenge. Reclaiming this mind is not about becoming violent. Predators, remember, are rarely violent. They don't need to be. Their capacity is so clearly communicated that most potential conflicts never materialize. Presence does the work before force is ever required. A wolf doesn't fight every animal it encounters. Its presence alone determines what is possible. That presence, the predator state, is what you've been stripped of. And reclaiming it begins with a fundamental shift in how you see yourself. You are not here to be liked. You are not here to be comfortable. You are not here to make others comfortable. You are here to live fully, to pursue what matters to you with complete intensity, and to refuse, absolutely and finally refuse, to be diminished by those who mistake your restraint for weakness. Being dangerous in the modern world does not require physical strength, though that helps. It does not require wealth, though resources create options. It does not require a network of powerful allies, though isolation is vulnerability. What it requires, first and above all, is internal non-negotiability. There must be lines within you that cannot be crossed, not external rules imposed by society, but personal absolutes you would defend with everything you have. Most people have no such lines. They will tolerate almost anything if the social pressure is strong enough. They will abandon their values when the group disapproves. They will sell out their integrity for approval, comfort, or convenience. That is what makes them manageable. The dangerous person is unmanageable, not because they are rebellious for its own sake. Rebellion without purpose is adolescence, not power, but because they have core commitments that cannot be bought, bullied, or negotiated away. Machiavelli warned, the promise given was a necessity of the past. The word broken is a necessity of the present. He understood that most people operate by convenience, that their commitments are performances, not realities, that their loyalty extends precisely as far as their comfort. The dangerous person operates differently. When they commit, they mean it. When they draw a line, they hold it. When they speak, their words carry weight, because the listener knows they are backed by something real, and that something real is not physical force, it's psychological certainty. The certainty that you will not waver, that pressure will not move you, that manipulation will find no purchase. This certainty is felt, not explained, and once it becomes your foundation, everything changes. People stop testing you, not because you've threatened them, but because they sense there is no point. Negotiations become different. You no longer feel the frantic need to prove, to persuade, to appease. You state your position with calm finality. And if it's not accepted, you walk away. Relationships become different. You attract those who respect strength and repel those who seek to exploit weakness. The quality of every human interaction improves. Your own internal experience becomes different. The constant anxiety of, am I enough, begins to quiet, because the answer stops being a question. It becomes a statement, I am enough. And if you disagree, that changes nothing. There is a concept in martial arts called zanshin. It refers to the state of relaxed alertness that a warrior maintains even after a technique is executed. The mind remains clear, the body remains ready. There is no moment of vulnerability, no gap in awareness. This is the posture of the dangerous mind, not tension. Tension exhausts, distorts, makes you reactive. But readiness, a soft vigilance, eyes open, energy conserved, ready to move in any direction the moment requires. Most people live in one of two states, dissociated comfort or frantic reactivity. They are either asleep or panicking. But the dangerous person lives in a third state, present, calm, and fully capable. Machiavelli admired this quality in Cesare Borgia, a man he studied closely during his diplomatic missions. Despite Borgia's many cruelties, Machiavelli observed something in him that transcended mere brutality, a capacity for stillness before decisive action. Borgia did not react. He assessed, he waited, and when he moved, the movement was final. But this is not about admiring historical monsters. It is about extracting the psychological principle beneath their effectiveness. Stillness creates power. When you are still, others must move first, and in their movement, they reveal themselves. When you are still, your energy accumulates rather than dissipates. When you are still, the world comes to you, not because you are passive, but because stillness is gravity. The loud, frenetic, constantly reacting person has no gravitational pull. They are always in motion, always responding, always dispersed. But the still person? They draw people in, draw attention in, draw power in. This is the art of the dangerous, to do less while meaning more, to speak less while communicating more, to move less while accomplishing more. It is not passivity, it is precision. Once you begin to change, truly change, the world will notice, and it will not approve. The people who benefited from your softness will resist your transformation. They will call it arrogance, coldness. They will say you've changed, and they won't mean it as a compliment. This is expected. Your softness served them. Your compliance made their lives easier, and when you withdraw that compliance, they will feel the loss. Some will adapt. They will recognize the new you, respect the new you, and relate to you differently. Others will not. They will exhaust themselves trying to push you back into the old shape. They will manipulate, guilt, gaslight. They will insist the old you was the real you, because the old you was more convenient. These people are not your enemies. They are simply revealing what your relationship was always based on. And that revelation, though painful, is valuable. Because the dangerous person does not need relationships built on exploitation. They can afford to let those go. They will build new connections, connections that recognize and respect their edge, rather than seeking to dull it. Machiavelli knew that transformation creates enemies. He wrote, "There is nothing more difficult to take in hand more perilous to conduct, or more uncertain in its success than to take the lead in the introduction of a new order of things. But he also knew the alternative, remaining safe, remaining the same, remaining soft. That too is a kind of death. Better to be tested and grow than to remain comfortable and stagnate. Better to lose connections that required your weakness than to keep them at the cost of your strength. Better to be dangerous and alone than harmless and surrounded. Though in practice, the dangerous are rarely alone. They attract a different kind of person. The kind who respects what they've become. The kind who carries their own edge. Iron sharpens iron, and the dangerous find each other. So here is where we arrive. You have been disarmed, deliberately, systematically. A soft world made you softer because soft people are easier to control. They consume without questioning. They obey without resisting. They tolerate without limit. But something in you refused to die completely. Some ember remained. That ember brought you here, to these words, to this moment. And now you face a choice. You can return to sleep. Close this video. Tell yourself it was interesting but impractical. Go back to your life of strategic niceness and managed comfort. Or you can begin, not with grand gestures, not with dramatic confrontations, but with small acts of reclamation. The next time you feel the urge to apologize for existing, don't. The next time someone crosses a line, hold it. The next time you want to shrink, to accommodate, to make yourself smaller for someone else's comfort, refuse. Each refusal is a vote for the person you're becoming. Each act of dignified assertion is a brick in the foundation of your new self. It will be uncomfortable. You will be tempted to retreat, but discomfort is the price of transformation. And the person waiting on the other side of that discomfort, the integrated, controlled, unmistakably dangerous person, is worth more than every false comfort you'll leave behind. Machiavelli's final lesson is often overlooked. He did not write The Prince for tyrants. He wrote it for those who wanted to understand how power actually worked, so they could stop being victims of it. Knowledge is armor. And now you know. You know how the world softens you, and why. You know what true danger is, and what it isn't. You know that the choice is yours, and that no one will make it for you. One final truth. Being dangerous is not light. It is not freedom from burden. It is the exchange of one burden for another. The soft person carries the weight of constant fear. Fear of conflict, fear of rejection, fear of standing alone. The dangerous person carries a different weight. The weight of responsibility. The weight of knowing they could harm and choosing not to. The weight of living consciously in a world that rewards unconsciousness. But this weight is yours. The soft person's burden was imposed. The dangerous person's burden is chosen. And there is a profound difference between suffering that happens to you and suffering you select. Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi death camps, wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." The dangerous person has a why. They carry their weight towards something. Their restraint has purpose. Their power has direction. And in that purposeful weight, there is a strange lightness, the lightness of alignment, the lightness of being exactly who you are, without apology. The softness you were taught was supposed to bring you peace. Did it? Or did it bring you the exhausting, low-grade anxiety of never knowing where you stand with others or with yourself? Danger, paradoxically, brings a deeper peace, the peace of certainty, of alignment, of knowing that you will not abandon yourself no matter what the world demands. That peace is waiting for you, not on the other side of more accommodation, not in the next compromise, not in becoming more palatable to those who would diminish you. It is waiting in the opposite direction, in the reclamation of your edge, in the integration of your shadow, in the patient, deliberate cultivation of a presence that others cannot ignore. The soft world will continue softening. Let it. You have other work to do. The question was never whether you could be dangerous. You can. You always could. The question was whether you would permit yourself to be, whether you would stop apologizing for your own capacity, whether you would accept that power is not evil, only uncontrolled power is, whether you would finally decide that your comfort matters less than your integrity and your likability matters less than your self-respect. There is no arriving. This is not a destination where one day you wake up complete. It is a practice, a discipline, an ongoing conversation between who you are and who you refuse to become. But the conversation starts now, with this moment, with the next decision, with the small private act of choosing weight over ease. No one will applaud you for this. The soft world does not celebrate the dangerous, but you will know, and in the silence of that knowing, something settles, something ancient and patient and unmistakably yours. The fire that was buried begins to breathe, and you become finally fully someone who cannot be ignored. If what you've heard has reached something inside you that most content never touches, understand this is only what I can share publicly. There are dimensions of this knowledge I cannot explore here. The algorithm does not reward depth. It punishes what it cannot easily categorize. The most transformative material gets buried or removed entirely, so I put it somewhere else. If you're still here after everything, you're not like most. Subscribe if you haven't. Most won't. That's the point.